Welcome to this video from the Consultants Development Institute. I'm Priscilla Watson, a presenter with CDI. This course is Strategic Planning in Organizations and is for anyone who will be involved in strategic planning, and it applies to any type of organization. The course is in 4 parts. Part 1 gives a clear description of sensible strategic planning. Part 2 gives step-by-step instructions to customize your planning process for your organization, which can save you a lot of money. Part 3 gives specific instructions to decide your most important strategic priorities. Part 4 guides you to develop and implement your plan document. The parts are available from CDI's website at consultantsdevelopmentinstitute.org. We recommend that you see the brief Part 1 before Part 2 because it gives you an overview of sensible strategic planning, including how the terms in planning can be used interchangeably between for-profits and nonprofits. Most of the topics in Part 2 reference an associated handout that includes additional clear and concise information about that topic. The handouts are available from your account in CDI's Learning Management System. After hearing the guidelines for each topic in this video, and then perhaps reading the handout, you should document your thoughts about that topic in a tool called the Template to Customize Your Strategic Planning Process. Like all of the other handouts, it is available from your account in CDI's Learning Management System. Your completed template can be shared with others in your organization so they can more fully understand and appreciate your customized process, including how they can take part in it. You might have several people from your organization go through Part 2 with you, so you can all share your opinions on how best to customize your plan. Let's look at the topics that we'll cover in Part 2. Many organizations start strategic planning when they're not really ready. We'll explain what you should think about now to be sure you are ready. One of the most important roles in planning is that of the planning committee, yet it's often one of the most misunderstood. We'll clear all of that up and help you equip your committee to do its very important role. Strategic planning is all about the organization. The board's job is to oversee the entire organization. We'll help you decide what your board's role should be in your planning. Customizing your planning is all about selecting the best model to use and then perhaps modifying that. We'll fully explain some of the most prominent models for you to choose from. Another very important role is that of the facilitator. You might be doing your own facilitation or hiring a professional. Either way, you should know what you'd like from the facilitator role. Your planner should know about the customized process that you're using, so you should train them about that. We'll suggest what to cover in that training. We'll also suggest how you can get strong understanding and commitment of all employees in your planning process. We'll end by explaining how to budget for your customized planning process. One of the most important questions to answer about your planning is, what is your primary reason for doing strategic planning now? Different reasons produce different ways to do planning, including the activities that you'll do and the order in which you'll do them. They also suggest how long your planning might take. In turn, that could influence the cost of your planning. Your reason for planning also defines what success will be in your planning. For example, if the reason is to grow the organization, then after your plan has been implemented, your planning was successful if your organization did grow. Your primary reason for planning is what you can use to motivate planners to do the planning. They'll know that they are doing planning for a specific reason, rather than planning for the sake of planning. Your primary reason also can be used to get the buy-in of employees when they understand that there is a specific purpose for the planning. In your template to customize your strategic planning process, document your primary reason for planning now. Let's verify that your organization is really ready for planning now. Consider the following questions and be as honest as you can in answering them. If you aren't, then you might end up with a strategic plan that's a waste of time. Is there enough money to pay your bills, for example, for the next 6 months? Strategic planning is not a way to quickly get money. It's difficult to get participation and commitment to a plan if employees don't see strong support of the planning from their leaders. Is there strong visible support from top leaders for your planning? It's your board's job to ensure clear purpose and priorities for your organization, so your board members should be involved in your planning. Will they be involved? Too often, planning does not include strategic thinking and discussions because board members make time for only one short meeting. Is it clear that the board members and other leaders can make sufficient time for planning? Strategic planning needs planners' full participation in strategic thinking and discussions. That can't be done as a second priority to a major event. Are any major events coming up that might distract from planning? Do board members and other leaders have a history of successfully making decisions? Strategic planning includes successfully making important decisions about the purpose and priorities of the organization. Implementation of the plan is as important as the planning. Can your organization really implement a significant plan? Does it have a history of successfully implementing plans? Are any key people leaving soon? It's very important to replace key leaders in a careful and planful way. That kind of succession planning can detract from strategic planning. Also, the new leaders should be involved in this strategic planning. What other considerations should you be making to ensure you are ready for planning? Now look at the handout titled How to Ensure You Are Really Ready for Strategic Planning. Then document your thoughts in the template. If strategic planning was done in your organization before, then that might be a treasure trove of learning about how to do planning even better now. So take time now to think about the following questions. What worked well during that previous planning process? For example, what strengths did you all bring to that process that you can bring now? What resources did you use that worked well? For example, certain guidebooks or facilitator. What methods did you use that worked well? For example, of making decisions and solving problems among planners. Then think about what could have been improved. For example, could you have customized your planning even better? How could your methods have been improved? Was your plan even implemented? If not, then why not? Document your thoughts in your template now. As you consider the following information, complete the handout, How to Organize Your Strategic Planning Committee. But first, let's get clear on the role of that committee. Its role is not to write the plan and deliver it to others in the organization. That's the job of the board members and other leaders in the organization. Ideally, all employees are involved in the planning. The job of the committee is to ensure a high-quality planning process, just like the mechanic's job is to ensure that your car runs right. The first job of the committee might be to customize the planning process. So it should be involved in going through the guidelines in Part 2 and perhaps completing the template with this course. The committee would also recommend how the facilitation role is filled, whether by a professional facilitator or one of the planners. The relationship between the committee and facilitator can be a big advantage during planning. The committee would monitor the planning process as it gets underway to ensure that it is progressing in a timely manner and according to the process designed by planners. The committee might be first to review any results from the planning to be sure the results are sufficient for further review by others. As an example, the committee would review drafts of the strategic plan document to get it ready for the board's review and approval. Remember to see the handout that we mentioned a minute ago about organizing your committee. Then list the members of your committee in your template. The primary job of a board of directors is to ensure the organization has clear overall purpose and priorities and is working toward those priorities. That means strategic planning. Here are some ideas to get your board involved. The first idea is simply to remind them that their job is to be involved in strategic matters in the organization. One of the most powerful ways is to ask them, what would we do if the CEO suddenly left? Shouldn't we have a strategic plan to fall back on? You could be sure that at least one board member is on the strategic planning committee. A board member could sign the contract with the strategic planning facilitator and therefore should know what that role is all about. Perhaps a board member has the expertise to facilitate the planning meetings. See the handout, How to Ensure Your Board is Involved in Strategic Planning, and then update your template. We've talked about the importance of customizing your planning process. One of the best ways to modify it is to select a prominent model of planning and then perhaps to modify it when developing and implementing your plan. The model will suggest the types of planning activities to include in your planning, the order in which to do them, and which activities to emphasize. That can also determine how long your planning might take. The model that you choose depends on the culture of your organization's current situation, and the primary purpose of your planning. Next, let's look at some prominent models to choose from. The handout, How to Select the Best Model for Your Strategic Planning, includes even more information. The conventional model of strategic planning usually includes the following overall phases. It usually starts with developing or updating the mission statement, and optionally the vision and values statements. Then you take a wide look around the outside of your organization, and perhaps generate a list of threats that it is facing, and also of the opportunities that it might have. Then you take a good look around the inside of the organization, and perhaps generate a list of weaknesses to address, and also a list of strengths to use. You might use some techniques to analyze the lists, and then decide what goals are needed now to work toward the mission. Then you develop action plans that specify who is going to do what and by when to achieve each goal. You might identify various associated plans, such as staffing, facilities, marketing, and financial plans. Often you organize the statements and goals into a strategic plan document, and the action plans into a separate one-year operational plan. The conventional model is often aimed at a very ambitious vision and goals and produces a long-term plan. The conventional model of strategic planning is not suited for every organization. However, you might use this model if one or more of the following is true for your organization. It has few current major issues to resolve. The environment in and around your organization is fairly stable. You have enough resources to pursue an ambitious vision and goals now. You have enough time to do a comprehensive planning process. And you have had success in doing a comprehensive process and in implementing a plan produced from that process. Another model of strategic planning is the issues-based model. This model might have the following phases. First, planners take a good look around the inside of the organization to more fully understand the issues that it is facing now. Then, planners list the top 5 to 7 issues to address over the coming 6 to 12 months. For each issue, they suggest action plans for resolving that issue. Then they document the issues and action plans into a strategic plan document. After an issues-based plan has been implemented and the current major issues are resolved, then the organization might undertake the more ambitious conventional model. Many people assert that issues-based planning is really internal development planning rather than strategic planning. Others would argue that the model is very strategic because it positions the organization for much more successful, outward-looking, and long-term planning later on. The issues-based model works best for organizations that have one or more of the following situations: several current and major internal issues to address, very limited resources, rapid changes around the organization, and very little buy-in of employees to do strategic planning now. So this model is for organizations that are almost in the opposite situation of those who qualify for the conventional model. Another model of strategic planning is the organic model, which might include the following phases. With as many people as can be gathered together, for example, from the community or social movement that is undergoing planning, articulate the long-term vision and perhaps the values to work toward the vision. Then each person selects at least one realistic action that he or she will take toward the vision and according to the values before the group meets again, for example, in a month or two. Essentially, these are many action plans. The vision, values, and intended actions are included in a strategic plan document. In subsequent meetings, each person reports the actions that they took as well as the learning that they got. About once or twice a year, the plan is updated, perhaps with revised vision and values and with a list of completed and intended actions. The organic model of planning suits people who believe that the conventional approach to planning too often confines organizations to a long sequence of orderly activities to do. These people might believe that a plan produced from conventional planning can quickly become obsolete. The model is especially useful in plans that aim for a very long-term vision, for example, spanning decades or generations. This could include, for example, a community development project or a movement for social change. The organic model is useful in planning that includes many diverse people who might have different perspectives and ways of doing things. In a very long-term project, the glue that holds people together is their values as much as their mission. This model can be very useful for continuing to gather people around common values. The handout, How to Select the Best Model for Your Strategic Planning, includes other models as well. Be sure to update your template with your choice of which model to use. The role of the facilitator is very important to the quality of your planning. You might get a professional facilitator or someone in the organization to do that role. You will likely need a facilitator for the following tasks. The facilitator can train your planners about strategic planning, including its purpose and many benefits. They can help your planners to customize the planning process, to consider various models and when to use each. The facilitator can help planners to design their meetings, including ground rules to follow and how the group will make decisions and solve problems. They will manage the planning meetings according to the design preferred by the planners. A good facilitator also can use various techniques to ensure sound strategic thinking during planning. After all, that's at least as important as the plan document. In addition to the typical tasks, you might have additional requirements of your facilitator. For example, you might want a facilitator who has expertise in a certain model of planning, for example, issues-based or organic strategic planning. Some planners prefer that the facilitator have strong expertise in their industry, their products, and the services of their organization. However, the facilitator should be careful not to end up doing the strategic thinking and planning for the organization. That would produce a plan that the organization would probably not use. You might want a facilitator with expertise around your primary goal for planning. For example, to grow your organization, to solve a major problem, or to prepare for approaching a funder. You might want a facilitator with expertise in working with certain cultures, for example, in the way that they make decisions and solve problems. You might want a facilitator with a certain style, For example, how they use questions, humor, and group exercises. Now you should decide whether you want one of the planners to facilitate the meeting or a professional facilitator with strong skills in strategic planning. Here are some reasons you might need a professional facilitator. If you have not done strategic planning before, then you might make a lot of mistakes and cause a lot of confusion that could try the patience of your planners. Use a professional facilitator if your previous planning was not successful. Otherwise, you might make the same mistakes as last time. You might use a professional if there are a lot of very different perspectives on how the planning should be done. A good facilitator can bring out those different ideas and help you to come to a consensus. Some planners might be inhibited from participating if one of them is also the facilitator. In those situations, an outside facilitator could be very useful. Some planners want to be sure that there is a very objective person involved, who does not already have strong opinions about the planning. The facilitator can bring that kind of objectivity about how to look at strategic priorities and what to do about them. If someone from inside of your organization will be facilitating, then you might consider taking CDI's course, Facilitating Group Decision Making and Problem Solving. Now read the handout, How to Plan the Facilitator Role, and then fill in your template. In addition to the needed board involvement and that of the Strategic Planning Committee, who else should be involved and when? For example, when should more of your employees be involved? If your organization decides that the board and upper management addresses mission, vision, values, and goals, then you will want to involve more employees to develop the action plans for achieving each goal. Ultimately, you will want all employees to feel that they had a hand in developing the plan. If the primary reason for your planning is to expand the organization and its products and programs, then you will probably want a market researcher to verify the needs among customers and clients and how they can be met. You might also want to involve experts in the industry or in the nature of your products and programs. Do you have an advisory board of members with special expertise? When should they be involved? For each person or group that will be involved, how will you recruit their involvement? You will need to convey what's in it for them to be involved in your planning. Document your thoughts in your template. Strategic planning includes making important decisions that will affect your entire organization. What methods will you use to get everyone's input to those decisions? Think about the culture of your organization. For example, will decisions be made by consensus, where everyone might not agree, but they will support the decision? If a consensus can't be reached within a certain time, then can your planners resort to a vote? Or will there be a person of authority in your group who will ultimately make decisions? When thinking about how best to make decisions, it might be helpful to think about what already works best in your organization. For example, would it help to call on those who seem most quiet? Would it help to go around the table where each person shares an opinion? Would it help if the supervisors spoke last so that they might not inhibit others from speaking? Part 3 of this course will share guidelines to ensure strong strategic thinking and discussions, especially when analyzing your environment and the strategies and goals to address what you find. Remember to update your template now. If members of the Planning Committee have been going through this video, then it's likely that they already have a good understanding of their customized process. Now it's very important that everyone else who will be involved in the planning also understands the process. In the training, be sure to explain the primary reason of the planning, as we talked about before in this video. You can mention additional reasons too. Describe the model of strategic planning that you chose and why. You might mention the phases in that model as well. Explain how facilitation will be done, including the responsibilities of the facilitator and how planners can also be involved in facilitating if possible. It's very important that planners know how their group process will be conducted, including how decisions will be made. Mention how you will ensure that all voices are heard. Then include time for questions and answers. That might be the most important part of the training. Mention how they can also pose questions later on. The handout, How to Train Planners About Their Strategic Planning Process, could be useful to review now. Then update your thoughts in your template. Many strategic plans end up collecting dust on shelves because employees were not convinced of the value of the plan. Here's what you can do to ensure that all employees are in support of the plan and how to implement it. Be sure to mention the primary reason for your planning now and how that reason benefits them. Be sure they see the board's and top management's support of the plan. Always mention if any previous efforts at planning had failed, and mention what you're doing now to avoid those mistakes. As much as practical, involve employees in customizing and developing the plan and in planning its implementation. Be sure the planning will address any current major issues in the workplace. Employees know those issues better than anyone, and they will believe in a plan to address them. Build in some quick successes so employees quickly appreciate the benefits of the plan. Explain how the process will continually get their feedback during planning and implementation. And finally, communicate the status of the planning and implementation. Err on the side of over-communicating. The handout, How to Get Strong Buy-in to Your Strategic Planning, will be useful to review now. Then update your template. There are usually 3 big influences on the costs of your planning. The first big influence is the primary reason for your planning. If it's to expand products or programs in various markets or communities, then you might need to pay for expertise, such as advice from market researchers and product developers. However, if it's primarily to improve internal systems, then you might only need a consultant to evaluate your internal systems. The second big influence is the model of planning that you are using. If it's the conventional model, then that usually includes numerous activities such as mission, vision, values, external and internal research, identifying goals, and action plans for each goal. You might need to pay a facilitator to be involved in all of those activities. In contrast, if it's the issues-based model, then the facilitator might be needed only to identify issues and then action plans for each issue. The third big influence is the type of tasks that the facilitator might do. It might be only to facilitate the planning meetings, including strategic thinking and discussions. Or it might also include training your planners, sharing advice about your industry or community, and using certain types of facilitation to accommodate certain cultures. The handout, How to Budget for Your Strategic Planning, will be very useful now. Use it to derive the various estimated costs that you might incur. Then update your template. It's useful now to give some thought to what you've learned. So, in your learning journal from CDI, write down the most important learnings so far. For example, answer these questions. How do you define success in strategic planning? That is, what does successful strategic planning look like? If you are the strategic planning facilitator, then how would you get your planners to customize their planning when they want to just rush to getting their plan done? Pause the video and write down your answers. We've come to the end of this part 2 about customizing your strategic planning process. We encourage you to take parts 3 and 4, in which you will use your customized planning process to produce and implement a strategic plan that is relevant, realistic, and flexible for your organization. If you ever have any questions or want to share feedback with us during the courses, simply send an email to info@consultantsdevelopmentinstitute.org. Again, thank you for your time during this video.